Gather around, Skull brothers and sisters. This is Minnesota Sports Talk, presenting Under the Lights with your hosts, Justin and Dave, next in 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, Vikings fans. This is Under the Lights with Justin and Dave. We have two very, very special guests on hand with us. Hall of Famer Paul Krause, and you know Jesse from Score North, who does the podcast with Thor of Before We Die. We just lost Paul here. So hopefully the technical difficulties will go away there. Well, we'll start with you, Jesse. How are you this evening?
I am well. How are you? I was going to say it's going to be hard to follow up a Hall of Famer here and try to make myself sound even somewhat achievable. But yeah, I'm excited to be on with you guys. Kids are crying in the background. Apologies early on. Should that be a distraction? But I'm used to it, so I ignore it all.
We're content creators. We know conditions are never going to be ultra perfect. So, at the end of it, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jesse, it's nice to have you. I'm going to see about getting Paul back on, but you guys talk about your experience with the game we just had. How about that? And I'll be right back.
Sounds like a plan. First off, I want to give a shout out to everybody who's in the chat so far. Bandito, thanks for joining us. Mick Andrews, thanks as always for joining us. So while we try to reconnect with Paul here, Jesse, I'm going to start by saying this. I was at the Score North gathering at the Mall of America during the Washington game. And unfortunately, after the game was over, by the time I got done cleaning up, paying the bills, and getting in line for the vent line talk, you and Thor both were there, and I had an opportunity to meet you both, and you were both gone by the time I got out of there. So just wanted to say that I thoroughly enjoy the three of you guys on Score North twice a week. Frankly, I wouldn't mind if you guys had 5 shows a week. But having said all of that, tell us a little bit. The first question we generally ask other content creators is, how did you become a Vikings fan? Were you born and raised here, or what's the scoop behind that?
I mean, just like most of us, born and raised and born into the travesty that is the Minnesota Vikings most year, right? I have learned very early on how heartbreaking they can be. I remember the first time I saw my dad cry was 1998. We don't need to go down that road again, but it was the only time I ever saw him actually take his jersey off. He'd been through enough pain and suffering, and then he was like, all right, we can go to your basketball game now, which I was approximately 20 minutes late for because we were watching said football game. Just a plea to coaches and tournament directors, let's not have basketball games on Sundays for all those poor parents who are looking for football. So I'm from Alameda, Minnesota, northeast suburbs. And just a sports fan in general, but obviously a Minnesota Vikings fan. They never cease to continue to amaze and disappoint all in one. And even this year's squad, I don't know what to make of it. It's just a complete bafflement, especially we all know Saturday's game. I'm still in shock. I think I still have kind of figured out what's happened, but it's been quite the journey. This wouldn't be the Minnesota Vikings if you didn't have a heart attack at least once or twice a game.
Well, if we are able to get Paul back on, I'll go down the road a little bit more. But I was actually at that game, saw the people leaving in droves at halftime, saw the empty seats in the upper deck like it was the last preseason game. And in final preseason game fashion, people did take their programs, rip it up, create all the paper airplanes, and chuck them all over the place. The way I describe this team this year, for lack of a better way of saying it, is weird. They are just the weirdest team ever. They find a way to not only making it exciting and make it stressful, but there are times they put roadblocks up in front of themselves because it's like they're bored. They're like, this isn't a good enough challenge for us on its own. We're just going to have to make things more difficult on ourselves just to find a way to make it ridiculously exciting at the end. So I'm right there with you. I don't know what to make of this team. I'm trying to project and analyze, okay, if we got in the playoffs, how far could we go? Which teams do we match up well with? Which teams don't we? And the fact is, there's a lot of teams that they don't match up with, but somehow, some way, they have found ways to pull off victories here. I don't see Paul in, and I see Dave still on the phone there, so we're just going to continue here. Well, you also, and again, I know it's a Viking show, but, Minnesota sports fans, tell us a little bit about the other things that you do. I know you do a little stuff with the Wild there. Tell us about that real quick.
Yeah, that's kind of the primary gig. That's why I'm grateful to Mackie and Judd for letting me hop on and do some Viking stuff just to challenge myself, get back into the entire sphere of sports, if you will, and sports content. I've been with the National Hockey League for the past about 7 seasons, I want to say, writing and covering the Minnesota Wild, news reporting, cover every single home game for the team. And then this year I'm writing for wild.com and for their team as well, just to get some feature stories in. Hockey has been a passion of mine. Never played. As I mentioned, I was a basketball girl, but you can't be in Minnesota and not find yourself falling in love with the game of hockey. My mom is from International Falls, so that is a hockey hotbed. My dad went to Hill Murray. I know, boo that, but it was only natural. I kind of wanted to share that hockey passion with them and found out I could turn it into a career. So here we are, and it's been going well. The Wild have figured their stuff out, which makes it a much more fun team to cover and watch for sure.
So who's the little one behind you? Who do we got there trying to get on camera here?
Oh, my little showboat here is Hudson, who is trying to steal the limelight. You want to say hi? He's got a Viking shirt that says someday. So,
someday, yes.
Yep.
That's the mantra of every Vikings fan. Someday,
exactly.
someday. I will say this. It is good that the Wild are back on track, so to speak, because it was ultimately just ridiculous to start. But I do enjoy the time that you spend on CCO with H. Lake. You know, he's been in the Minnesota sports media for near 2 decades, as well as, well, he had a stint in Kansas City as well. But having said that, your segments with H. Lake are stellar because, you know, I've always enjoyed listening to Henry Lake, and it's good to have somebody like you that is very knowledgeable and able to, you know, have the great conversations with Lake that you have.
I'm trying to pull him over to the hockey side more often. He's full on Timberwolves, but we'll get Lake over to the XL once in a while.
Yeah, he's definitely a basketball guy, and you just put a quarter in him and say Rock Jock Jayhawk, and he'll talk for an hour. Dave, are we going to try again? Or are you still
just a little update? We're having some internet issues over in the Krause family household, and we are trying to do it through the phone. They had a mic issue with the phone for some reason, which is weird. Go StreamYard, and she's shutting down her phone and going to try again. So we'll continue talking. Hopefully we'll be able to get Paul on the rest of the show, but hey, that's why we got Jesse on to fill to tell us all about about the hockey season. No, I'm kidding.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I didn't get to hear your experience. Were you actually at the football game, or just you were watching on television?
No, I mean, and I'll admit it. I hate to admit it, but I did after halftime. I was like, "Hey, kids, let's bake some Christmas cookies. Mommy's getting a little agitated right now." So I completely went in the kitchen. It also helped to let my husband watch the game kind of a little bit peacefully, and then I came back in, I think, just to check something. I was like, wait, what? And I then sat down. He's like, don't pretend that you're coming back now. I'm like, well, now I have to watch this. The cookies are burning. You know,
but
whatever.
You did at least got to see towards the end, huh?
Yeah. So I came in right when they had tied it up and we're about to head into overtime. So was able to watch that stellar finish. Still can't believe it happened. Although this is what the Minnesota Vikings have been this year. And I said it from the get-go on our Before We Die show with Purple Daily is it sustainable? Are these comebacks continuously sustainable? And apparently they are. I mean, that's what's so bizarre. Like, what team goes in and is down by as many touchdowns as they were? And like, yeah, we'll come back and do that. Like, that's not realistic for anybody except for this Minnesota Vikings team.
And we're tied for the most one-score victories. 10.
Yeah.
And we're one, and Kirk Cousins is one away from tying the NFL record for fourth quarter comeback victory. So that's actually insane. That's just insane.
It is.
No, that's the same thing that I've been saying is that, okay, when you're playing the New Orleans Saints or the Tua-less Miami Dolphins or the Chicago Bears or most recently the Colts, you might be able to get away with that. But when you're in the playoffs against Dallas and Philly and San Francisco, it's probably not going to fly. So we have to find that middle ground of, okay, this is what we've done. This is what we're good at. But offensively, how about we not wait until we're ultra desperate before we start looking like the greatest show on turf? Because that's what's funny about this offense. In some beginning of the game, first drive or two, they go right down the field and then they take a nap for two quarters. And then they come back saying, all right, I guess we'll just put up, 3 touchdowns in 4 drives or 5 out of 6 or whatever the case may be. Should we try Mr. Krause again here, Dave? Or are we still
is he on?
I got a couple of them in here, actually. So let's try this here.
I mean, I know they ain't here for me.
Hey, there you are.
Mr. Krause,
hi,
can you hear
guys.
us?
We can hear you awesome now.
Well, I'm here right now.
All right. Yeah. Hey, welcome to the show. This is Under the Lights with Minnesota Sports Talk. You got Justin, Dave, and Jesse's a visiting guest host. We got some people in the chat eager to hear from you. Got Bandito. Thanks for showing up. Thank you, Sneaky Pop Tart, for showing up. Hey, Paul, it's nice to have you here. Hey, tell the listeners, tell the fans about your experience at the game. I know you announced it on Facebook, so feel free to admit it.
Yeah, I'll admit anything, but we watched. We were up in the box, that the Vikings have, and all we had about 8 Hall of Famers up there, and a rest of probably another 15 ex-Vikes, and so we were just talking and watching the game, and all of a sudden the Vikes can't score. They're throwing interceptions. They're dropping dropping the balls or everything like that. And we just said, well, I know one popular Hall of Famer says, I'm going home. And so I says, if this doesn't get better in about a minute, I'm going home. So there was a stream of guys walking out the door, and eventually we're driving down the road, kind of paying attention to the game, and then got home, and what a game. Everything changed. It was like night and day.
Hey, Paul, we can hear you fine. Just if you can, keep the phone a little away from your face so we can see your beautiful mug, man.
There you go.
Oh, man.
Just like that. Just
I'm
like that.
old.
No, you're good. If you need to move it to hear us, please. No, man, you were a good-looking cat back in the day. You're still a good-looking cat.
Well, shoot, I'm 80 years old now.
Oh, you just gave up the secret.
Uh-oh.
Well, I'll tell you what, Paul, I was actually in attendance, and it was my daughter's first game along with my girlfriend, and her son is his first game. And the first half, it was like, wow, we brought these two to this game, and it's worse than a preseason game, Yeah. But by the second half, when stuff actually was exciting, it was great. Unfortunately, there was a couple right next to me on my left that they left at the 2-minute warning in the first half, and they did not come back. And there were a lot of empty seats there. So it wasn't as loud at the end when TJ caught the 2-point conversion or when the field goal went through as it should have been for a clinching win, as well as the best comeback in history. But having said that, it was an ultra great time. It was good to see some of the Hall of Famers there that you mentioned on the screens a couple of times, as well as with the Gallahorn. So it's just undescribable. I still almost don't believe that it happened, if I'm being honest. I really don't.
Well, I can't believe it happened. I mean, you're 33 down at halftime, and you're playing, rotten football, and all of a sudden, it was just like magic. It went just like you could write it down and say, well, this is what's going to happen, and we're going to win the game.
Hey, Paul, the first time I ever got to see you, and the only time I've ever got to see you, I was up on the rafters, and it was 2019. We were in week 17 playing the Bears at home, and they gave you the mic at midfield. And at the end, you said something to the effect, and another thing, I think we should be playing our starters. And the whole crowd just went absolutely nuts. Was that part of your old school football mentality that you actually called out the entire team that was standing in front of you that I think we should be playing our starters? Tell us about that.
Well, I'm not going to pull any words out of my mouth. If I'm thinking, I'm going to tell it. And I told it last year and 2 years ago, and probably got in some trouble. with some of the Vikings, but and the owners and whatever. But doggone it, I played for 16 years, and I missed 2 games, and I was injured
Wow.
in both games. You got to play your best people, and your best people are going to get you to your goal faster than the backups. That's not even a good question or a good answer.
And Paul, I appreciated that, Paul, because I flew 1,700 miles or traveled 1,700 miles to see Sean Mannion play instead of Kirk Cousins. So I appreciated that.
Well, you know what? Kirk Cousins, that's another thing. I think last Sunday was one of his outcomings. He's known not to be the best quarterback in the league, but I'll tell you what, he is playing some great football right now, and most of the season so far, Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. I just wish he could throw the ball faster out of there and not go over 3 seconds to throw.
Well, I'll say this. This version of Kirk Cousins, since coming under the tutelage of Kevin O'Connell, is a different version than what we saw with Mike Zimmer. Now, how much of that you put on Kirk, how much you put on the culture and Zimmer, I don't know. But this year's version, I mean, as Dave has mentioned, with all of the come from behind victories and all of the clutch moments, I would still argue that he's a different guy than he has been. Now, maybe it's because he had shackles on him before. I don't know. That's another conversation you can have. But I think this year he's really elevated not only himself, but has elevated his team. Do you think that this year is any different than the previous 4?
Well, let me take that in, number 1, 2, and 3. Kirk Cousins and the whole football team played with shackles on them for 5 years. In the past 5 years, it was. I don't want to jab a coach or anything, but the coach and I didn't get along together, but that's another story that will come out sometime. Kurt is a good quarterback. He just has to learn to throw the ball faster. He can't hang on to it like he does. But all the Viking football team, as everybody saw on television, and I saw on television, they were playing as a unit. The defense was playing as a defensive unit, and the offense an offensive unit. They started not to make mistakes, and they ran their plays in perfect order and everything. I just think that the coach got these guys in the locker room and gave them what for, and I think he can do that. He has proven that the players like him. He likes the players, but all again that he has proven that he can bring them back out and score a lot of touchdowns.
Paul, I was going to lead into a question for Jesse here, so I was going to lead in for you, Jesse. Okay. It says here, Vikings Jerome said Paul K. interception record will never get broken, and I think it's one of those like not Honus Wagner, but a Warren Spahn type of like records from baseball that no one will ever get 500 and how many wins. No one, I think will be here in 100 years, and the NFL will be in here in 100 years, and they'll still say that Paul Krause is the interception leader. That's a thing I'll never get broken. But you started your career at Iowa, and Jessie started her career at Iowa as a student.
No, Iowa State. You better add that state on there, boy. Come on.
Did I say Iowa? An Iowa Hawkeye.
Oh, okay. I swear you. Oh, anyways, my bad. Well, anyways, Jesse, I thought you said you went to the same school. My
No,
bad.
the
I must have
opposite.
misunderstood that. But tell us, getting drafted to Washington, what was that like coming out of college?
Well, that was a fun time for me. But I was a baseball player also.
All American your sophomore year.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
And I tore up my shoulders in my junior year, and I couldn't play baseball anymore. So I stuck with football and was the number 2 draft choice of the Washington Redskins. And they had Sonny Jurgensen, Bobby Mitchell, Sam Huff, and we were a pretty good football team. But we just couldn't put it together in the 4 years that I was there to run into any championships. But I enjoyed it. Sam Huff and Sonny Jurgensen taught me so much football that in 4 years that I'll never forget it. They were guiding me through the football games and telling me how to play. Sonny would tell me, don't get beat on this type of pass and all that. And then Sam would take care of me in the huddle and actually put me in position to get all those interceptions.
Since we're going to stick with college just for one moment, appease me for a minute here, Paul. As we mentioned, I'm a Cyclone. You're a Hawkeye. I'm also a Gopher, so I've got a double Hawkeye entendre going. Now, I know that they didn't really create the Cy-Hawk trophy necessarily until after you were done with college, but was there that rivalry still brewing there, even if there wasn't kind of that Cy-Hawk trophy on the line, which started, I think, in like 76? Did you have any sort of animosity per se, the fun animosity towards Iowa State?
Well, we never even thought about that. Because we weren't gonna play them,
right?
And so we never really thought about a game between the Cyclones and the Hawkeyes.
Have you been down for an Iowa State game since?
No, I have not. I go to one game a year.
Okay. Is that always the same game or just the same weekend?
No, it's just a number of games, and I go to see my friends that are still around the school or in Iowa.
Nice. I'm telling you, you got to see, for anybody out there, if you're just a general college football fan, the Iowa State game is it's unreal. It's so much fun. There's so much passion on both sides. Even as a Minnesota native, I can appreciate how much football down in Iowa means. Paul, I got one more question for you too. We talked about Kirk Cousins and kind of what he's been able to achieve for the Minnesota Vikings in particular this year. Can't talk about a solid offense and comebacks without talking about Justin Jefferson. What do you make of him? I mean, right now he is on pace for easily close to 1,900 plus yards on the season. Obviously, it'd be phenomenal for him to break those records. Is he one of the best wide receivers that you've seen to date?
Well, he's proven himself. You don't have to go to a bunch of guys and say, well, I think Jefferson's better or some other guy's better or whatever. Jefferson has proven that he is a top receiver in football.
I like that. Ever, do you think? I mean, Vikings fans, right, are so passionate about Randy Moss and Chris Carter. Where does JJ rank in between those three particularly?
Well, I'll tell you that in about 10 more years.
Yeah, I think several of us said the same thing. We had a big discussion about that, and I think we all came into agreement that, hey, I said at least talk to me in like 5 years, but yeah, you don't know until the book has been written. Hey, I got a question. I talked about you getting drafted, and you talked about Sam Huff, and I saw an interview, and you, but not on the same show. By the way, everybody who's watching right now, I got links to interviews, NFL films, all in the description below, and get to know what Paul Krause was like back in the day. But you played for Washington for 4 years and had 28 interceptions, which is some people's career.
Right.
And then they
Yeah.
traded you, as reported, that you weren't a scheme fit. What was Washington thinking that Paul Krause, 81 interceptions, NFL Hall of Famer, wasn't able to fit in that scheme? And I think Sam Huff had something to say about it too.
Well, all I know is the defensive backfield coach and I didn't get along. He played on the same team in New York as Sam Huff, and he didn't know anything. He didn't really play. He didn't play full time. And Sam said to the coach, "Let me take care of Krause, and you take care of the rest of the guys." and so it went like that. And then Bud and Jerry Burns got together as coaches, and then they brought in a coach that I played behind for 3 years, and he was my defensive backfield coach. And they just said, "Go out and play the game you always play." And then Bud Grant walked up to me in the training camp my first year, and he said, "Paul," he says, "you can play the game just about any way you want to, but do me one favor." He said, "Don't get beat deep." And I told Bud that plays right into my hands. And I'll tell you, I'll try not to get beat deep. And he says, "No, you'll try, but you better not." But, Bud let me play. He let me play the position how I wanted to, or how I was used to playing. They can't score bombs when they got a free safety back there that can run and jump and do everything that they can do. And so Bud just said, "Just don't get beat deep, and we're full. We're on there." And actually, I played all those years. And Bud was my coach, Jerry Burns was my coach, and we had some good teams and everything like that. We didn't win a Super Bowl, but big deal.
Hey, I've had Chuck Foreman and Greg Coleman on here with me and Justin, and they kind of gave us the same answer. What team, when you were playing back, and since you mentioned it, did you feel like was the best team you played on? And tell us a little bit about it.
Oh boy. My memory's not that good. Our Super Bowl teams were the best teams, but the best team was the team that beat us out by cheating. Do you want to know who it was?
Yeah.
Dallas Cowboys.
1975.
1975. I was about 5 feet from their offensive receiver.
The Pearson push off. The Pearson push off.
He pushed off. He pushed off, and we all threw a flag. And I'll tell you one thing: that flag was thrown.
It was?
The flag was thrown.
Are you kidding me? I did not know that.
They walked over, and somebody tells the referee that threw the flag to pick it up.
You're kidding.
Unbelievable. I've not heard that.
I am not kidding,
that is
because
amazing.
I'm saying this over the radio.
This is forever going to be on the internet.
Yes.
And I'm going to make sure everybody knows that, because you're the first person. I was 5 years old when that happened. So and things get lost in translation over time, that stories get untold, and everybody loves the Cowboys, America's team, right? So we never got
right.
so that story didn't get told very often, I'm sure.
No.
And if it did,
The game,
yeah,
the game should have been called about a couple minutes before that. The referee said that the receiver was pushed out of bounds, but he was out of bounds before uh, he was pushed. Now, then they went down and scored, and you know what? I personally saw the film that the flag was thrown up in the air right in my face.
oh my gosh. I hated to open up old wounds. You mentioned the 75 team. I agree. And many other people think that that was the best team in Vikings history, and an amazing team. And you had 10 interceptions that year. Not only you had 12 your rookie year, and you were all pro as a rookie, but we're only second for the rookie of the year. But you were all pro as a rookie, which is crazy.
Yeah, funny.
And then your 12th year in 1975, you get 10 interceptions and you make all pro again. First team. That's insane. How did you do that? How did you stay so on top of your game for all of those years? You had 3 interceptions in year 16. That's a great year for somebody this day and age.
Yeah, well, I've been blessed. God give me some ability that he probably doesn't dish out a lot. But I just think that I was blessed.
Well, I'll say this. That was 4 years before my time. And in my mind, the 98 Vikings with rookie Randy Moss and company will always be what my starting point is. And I've always had people that came before me try to insist to me why they hate the Cowboys more than they hate the Packers. For somebody in my generation, it's unfathomable that a team other than the Packers could be the team that you hate the most.
Yeah.
After hearing that story, I'm now going to have to reconsider if I move the Cowboys to 1A and the Packers to 1B, that somehow, some way, an official saw what everybody else on the planet has seen repeatedly, and they decide to just say, never mind.
Yeah.
We'll just forget about that one.
They will never admit it, but I might have been the only one that saw it, because it was right in my face.
Maybe you needed to do what Shannon Sullivan did this past week after his second touchdown was taken away, and just start turning tables over and raising hell.
I think Shannon Sullivan kind of knows what you feel like. I don't know. You watch the 2 touchdowns that got taken away from him. That is incredible. And Justin Jefferson the week before got one taken away from Detroit. It's like, where are these refs coming from? And apparently they're grandkids of the guys that ref that Cowboys game.
Yeah. They're grandkids of the guy that made the big call.
I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist, but
I think we're onto something.
Yeah,
I think we're onto something.
You go back and find out who has the movies.
Oh, yeah, NFL. Did NFL films start yet? Maybe they didn't. They could have. They might have.
I think they did. I think they had them.
Now, a few years.
I just watched this about 6 months ago.
Wow, that's awesome. Hey, a couple listeners joined in. Hey, Vikings Rome, thanks for being so active in the chat. Grandizer, the straw that stirs the drinks in here. Thanks for showing up. Hey, Paul. A few years ago, NFL Films actually put out the 10 best safeties in the league. You were. And you were interviewed for it. Where were you ranked?
I have no idea where I was ranked.
Would you like me to tell you? I'm going to tell you, just as a spur your memory. You were actually interviewed, and I think Sam Huff was interviewed too for it. And at least in one of the films that I saw. And you were ranked second behind Ronnie Lott.
Yeah.
And
you know what? Ronnie Lott and all those guys that were chasing me, Still haven't caught me.
They still haven't caught you. And you actually passed up someone who had 79 before you, which was, I forget his name.
Well, you know what? That was a former Hawkeye.
He was incredible player.
He went to Iowa.
Oh, I guess that's where you produce interception leader.
Yeah.
That's insane. But it is so odd because the same company did not put you in the top 100 NFL players, and they actually had 6 safeties on the list. But the same company ranked you the second best safety in history, and the rankings came out in like nearly the same year. It was crazy to think that.
I'm just going to say, what do they know?
Oh, what do they know? Right. But hey, I'm going to brag on you for a second. We did get a chance. We usually open the show when we have a special guest like you. I just want the listeners to hear what you did. You played for Washington 64 to 67, Minnesota from 68 to 79. You had a 16-year career. You are the NFL record that will never be broken, in our opinion. Most career interceptions, 81. 3 first-team All-Pros, 64, 65. Then 10 years later in 75, amazing. Second-team All-Pro, 68, 69, 71, 72. 8-year Pro Bowl career. NFL interception leader in 64. I think that was your rookie year with 12. Minnesota Vikings Ring of Honor. I'm running out of breath, Paul. 50 greatest Vikings. Minnesota's Vikings 25th anniversary team. 40th anniversary team. Washington Redskins 90 greatest player. 90 greatest players, and you only played for them for 4 years, and they gave you that honor, which is amazing.
That's incredible.
Well, you know something? It bothers me a little bit. You know, nobody's even close to my record now, and I haven't had a piece of TV or they don't give me anything. They don't give me a part in the top 100. What's the guy got to do?
Well, hey, I'm putting it in the description below. You got the NFL at least admitted, even though they took 20 years to put you in the NFL Hall of Fame. I don't know what they got against safeties, but in fact, I think they didn't put you number 1 because Ronnie Lott amputated his finger to get back into a game, and that's probably why they put you over it. Maybe you had to cut off your finger. Did you think about trying that?
Oh, that's why he didn't catch me?
Oh yeah, probably. Right. But yeah, I don't think it'll ever be broken. But one of the things I wanted to do as a podcaster was to get the Vikings on, and and I noticed that a lot of the ex-Vikings players, Hall of Famers, legends, Ring of Honor players are getting together and doing events together. And when I saw you say, "Hey, I'm on Facebook now," I immediately messaged you because I wanted your story told, because I agree, Paul, you do not get enough credit for being the only record that will, at least positive record, that will never be broken. And I just want to be a little part of that. And I think Justin does too.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And we were going to want to have you on. I'm going to bug you a little bit next year too to try to have you on. And hey, who knows if we get to the Super Bowl this year? I'm going to call you and see if I can get you back on.
All right, that's a good deal.
Hey, where can now I got all your social media in the description below, so you don't have to tell all of that. But is there anything you want to tell your fans out here, the Viking fans, what you got going on that you want everybody to know about, something you're involved in, anything?
Well, you know what? I'm a car guy, and I have a very, very nice man cave.
I've seen the pictures. It's nice.
And I just finished a rat rod truck painted in like a Minnesota Viking would paint their truck. It's purple and gold.
Hence why I called my channel Purple and Gold for days.
Hey, Jesse, I know you got to leave a little bit early. Do you want to go ahead and ask Paul a question before you got to go?
Will you ever cheer for the Cyclones, Paul? I gotta know.
Will I ever cheer for those Cyclones?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's the question.
They had
No.
some great football players. Matt Blair.
Yeah.
I remember that, and they are a good school, and producing some good football players, and they should not steal any more football players from Minnesota.
That's true. I do have one kind of more serious question, I guess. If football wasn't the career path that you chose, what would you have done? I know now you had gotten into real estate post playing career, but what would you have done if the NFL wasn't an option for you?
Well, if it wasn't an option for me, it was going to be an option for me.
That is the best answer I've ever heard.
I was going to be a baseball player, and I was a pretty good one. But I think
Drafted.
I proved my self playing football too.
I would say so.
One quick question before I let Justin finish up with his is, Joey Browner, who isn't in the Hall of Fame, I think he should. I think he's the only other safety in his playing days outside of Ronnie Lott that was Hall of Fame ability. And currently Harrison Smith, who's got all sorts of stats better than Paul Malu from the Steelers, but two things they don't have in common is Super Bowl wins. And I think players, including from your age, get overlooked by that. But those safeties, I think you've met them both, right? And you've talked with them. Sure. How did you feel about their careers?
Well, I think that now I can't think of his name. Who's a Minnesota Viking?
Harrison Smith or no. Joey Browner?
Who's a Minnesota Viking that the safety that you mentioned?
Harrison Smith is the current one, and Joey Browner was the one from the 80s.
All right, Joey Browner. Joey Browner is probably one of the top 5 strong safeties I've ever seen. And he was a true football player. And Joey Browner and I we talk a lot, just so I'm at the game last weekend. But Joey Browner should be in the Hall of Fame.
No doubt about that. We'll make this brief because we know that you've given us a lot of your time, and we very, very much appreciate this. The last question we'll have here is, to the best of your recollection, which quarterback did you like intercepting the most? I know in our time, anybody who got an interception off Brett Favre when he was with the Packers, that was like 10 levels above. There's guys that would rather have 1 interception off Favre than 10 interceptions off combined everybody else. Who would you say the quarterback of your time was the one that you said, I got this guy, so to speak?
Well, my goodness, there was a few of them. We had
there's more than a few.
Good times in Detroit. Bart Starr.
Oh, I'll picture that.
I've always heard that Bart Starr told the coach told Bart Starr not to throw into my area, and so Bart was playing the game and everything, and all of a sudden he threw into my area, and I intercepted the ball and returned it for a few yards, and their coach was running down. I told you not to throw at Krause. I told you not to throw at Krause. And Bart Starr, I liked intercepting Bart Starr. You know what? I was at this is a different thing that I'm going to talk about. I was at the Hall of Fame last year, and I was sitting down with about 4 or 5 partners of mine that are in, and along came Jimmy Brown. Jimmy Brown sat right beside me, and we had played golf together and talked and everything. And I was the only one that played against Jimmy Brown. And I'll tell you what, that was a true honor. And he was the best running back I've ever seen. And he hurt you when he ran over. And I told him, I says, I still have a picture of 7 Washington Redskins hanging on to him as he went into the end zone. And I mean, not a receiver. Well, he could catch a football too, but he didn't have to. Jimmy Brown was the best running back I've ever seen.
No disrespect to Hall of Famer Jerome Bettis, but Jim Brown was the bus long before Jerome Bettis was the bus.
He was pretty good. He was bigger than most linemen back in those days.
Yeah,
and he ran like the wind. And it was funny because he would like fake injuries to make people think like he was hurt.
Oh yeah,
and you would just mow him over.
He was an All-American. Oh geez, what are the sticks and everything they put?
Lacrosse.
Lacrosse. He was an All-American.
Yeah, I think I heard
lacrosse player. But anyway, Jimmy and I sat right down beside each other, and we talked for about an hour. And nobody else, you know, there's very few that can say that.
No kidding.
He's a great man, honestly. Every time I hear him talk, I want to listen. I did have a couple questions from the real quick ones from the listeners here. Jim Marshall is not in the Hall of Fame. And he's one of the purple people eaters, a great defense of your day. Do you feel like I guess I want to ask you this: do Hall of Famers go to and talk to the Hall of Fame or talk to the voters or promote other players? Because like a Tingle Hall. Oh
they
yeah,
do.
You
know they do, but some of those guys that vote I don't know what football players they're looking at. Jim Marshall belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Well stated.
Yes, he does.
And so does the running back that we've had for what's
Chuck Foreman?
Chuck Foreman, yes. He's a good friend of mine. I can't remember his name.
Oh, I do. I forget Justin's name all the time.
Hey, Chuck Foreman won.
He revolutionized the game.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And he's still not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, we had one more question from a listener, and you're a defensive player and one of the best safeties ever, and you played in a defense where you could play center field, which we have a defense currently. It looks like a Harrison Smith can play center field. How do you feel about Ed Donatell's scheme on the Minnesota Vikings? That's from a listener.
Okay, I don't like it. I don't think he knows what he's doing anymore, and he should retire. How's that?
So there we have it. We got the
beautiful point blank. There's your walk-off.
We got the.
And you mentioned, we're number 22.
Harrison Smith.
Harrison Smith is a great power.
Like a strong safety or a
strong safety. I think he could be all everything. But and I talked with some of the guys, about him being a free safety, but he loves to get up there and hit people, and sometimes he gets caught back, in the back, and he's still got 30 some interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to have played with him. As he would be the strong safety, and I would be the free safety.
Nobody
would
would
be
ever
so-
score a bomb on that duo. That's for sure.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of picks in that and on that team. I don't think they could go anywhere.
Well, I don't know, but he's a good football player, and he's a nice young man.
He's awesome. He's awesome. I was so happy when we drafted him. But I think it's been great. Thanks, Jesse, for being on the show. Paul, I'm going to call you again sometime, and if we make it to the Super Bowl this year, I'm gonna try to get you back on our show beforehand. And hey, either in the summer or in the off season or next year, I'll give you a ring, and it'd be an honor to have you back on the phone or back on the show and talk more football.
Very good.
All right,
Thank you
hey
so much
guys,
for your time tonight, Paul. We very much appreciate having a Hall of Famer on with us.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. Good night.
And girls.
and thank everybody in the chat for listening to Minnesota Sports Talk Under the Lights. Have a great day.